This session is now being recorded. Thank you. We'll get straight into it.
How are you?
Yeah, good.
Not bad. Nice to hear from you again after all these years.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, it's good to hear from you too, John. I couldn't hear you earlier on, but it's good your microphone's working again. Okay, good. So
It's very white at the moment. We had a bit of snow yesterday, or the day on Sunday we had some snow, and I think it'll stay for the rest of the week. So
yeah,
as
absolutely.
usual, once that happens, people start talking about ice skating races, but that'll never happen.
Yeah.
You need 10 days below -10 for that, and that's not going to happen.
Okay, we'll have a little chat later, John. Ram, welcome. We're just getting started on the presentation.
Good morning. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, good morning. If you don't mind just muting your microphones, that'll be great.
Sure,
That'll
sure.
be great.
Yeah. I'll do.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so the topic today is communication, I guess, and specifically about your achievements. I thought of doing this because we
canals, at least up in the north of the country, used to freeze.
I thought about doing this presentation because in my experience, I think engineers are not particularly good at communicating and specifically sort of sharing information with the wider audience to really leverage their worth, so to speak. So who are we? We're consulting engineers. We work in construction and design, process engineers working in refineries and chemical plants, etc. And of course, control and optimization engineers. So really quite a wide range of people who are from different backgrounds, such as chemical engineers, mechanical engineers, electrical, etc. We do have quite a major impact on our organizations, on our communities, and I would say in the wider world. And I think it is perhaps a bit of a disservice to ourselves by not really shouting about it, so to speak. So if you think about it, what is our impact? If you look at efficiency gains, improved workflows, better design, better solution to existing problems, these are all things we do every day. Safety improvements, such as setting up alarm systems or using asset performance management software to help predict how your equipment is working and maybe intervene at the correct time. So we are really using a lot of tools at our disposal to help make things safer for our working colleagues, as well as our companies and organizations. We also have quite a significant impact on the environment in terms of energy efficiency improvements. It could be we've designed some catalyst which is helping reduce emissions, or we're reducing water usage. All these little things have a major impact in our communities. Optimization is obviously something very mathematical, something that has evolved over the years, and we're very good at that in terms of, again, improving energy usage, improving energy integration, improving equipment and plant design. And in the end, all of these really end up in improved profitability if that's the way our organization is set up. It does have an impact on the bottom line. It could be that our process or the plant we're working on is more agile in terms of how it works. And it could be we have better product qualities, less waste, increased production. These are all results of our work. So what do we have in terms of tools and data available to us? We have design software. We use a lot of simulation software, for example, and in different departments, you have simulation software for advanced process control, you'll have, process design software and all kinds of different areas. We have trends that we can use to visualize plots, look at multiple variables. We use data from databases where we can extract information, such as LIMS, PI, Oracle databases, DCS databases. And of course, we use Excel as our tool for data analysis. And it's very easy to use Excel. It's also easy to share information, and it's quite powerful. And of course, one of our important tools is obviously communicating with people, asking questions, talk to them, learn from their experience. And what we are doing is we are synthesizing all that information together and using all of those tools together. So we've got the tools now. We want to convert the data into something useful and some useful information. So we've done a piece of work. We've got the data. Now we want to convert it into something useful. We can look at simulation results, create different scenarios and analyze the results. We can look at analyzing trends, comparing trends, look for anomalies, events and correlations in trends. Data preparation is quite important. Quite often, if we look at data, we shouldn't just believe it blindly. We need to question, make sure timestamps, etc., are correct, and really spend time to format it so that it's easy to use and share. Statistical analysis, we can use multiple data sets to compare, analyze, and understand the problem we're working on, and really get to the bottom of what we are investigating. And also investigate. And what do I mean by that? We have information from people, and we can validate that information with data, and vice versa. We have information available from the data, and we can validate that from people, and from people, we're talking to people, they might have some views on certain issues, and we can validate that with the data and see if the data is actually showing what they have experienced in the past. So we have the tools, we have the information, and now we want the audience. So who do we want to speak to or communicate our achievement to? Colleagues, obviously, is a good starting point. Non-technical staff, there might be people in your organization who could be interested in the work that you're doing. Obviously, management is always a good group of people to invite to your work, to your presentation, to show them your work. Different departments. If you are in a process engineering department, and there might be other people in, let's say, lab information systems or database or scheduling and planning departments, etc. You want to be able to share that information with them. In the end, you also want to be able to share your information with decision makers who can really understand the impact of your work and your achievement. Preparation. So in terms of preparing the work or the presentation that you're going to give to your peers and your colleagues, there's lots of ways of doing this. Obviously, some ideas such as preparing graphs and trends. That's always a good thing. Make it very visual. Always good to have before and after scenarios, so it's very, the differences are very stark and clear. I would say it's important to adapt your presentation to the audience. So, make it less technical. If you've got managers and commercial people in the audience, make it brief and impactful. So better to have 4 or 5 very impactful slides rather than having sort of 10, 15 with sort of perhaps not well researched, well thought out information. And financial benefits are always important because people can understand that and relate to that. So make sure you try and convert and present your work in terms of financial benefits, and also other benefits. It could be training benefits, improvements in how people, how improvements in workflow, for example, and sort of improvements in well-being because of perhaps, let's say, reduction in alarms and things like that. So those are all also important things to highlight in your work. So we've got tools, information, audience, and we've done some preparation work, and now we are ready to present. So what forums are available to us to do this type of presentation? You would have some regular team meetings or regular management or board meetings, and those are good forums to tap into. You may not always be invited to a management meeting or a board meeting, but if your work is of importance and your managers, etc., are very supportive of your work, there is no reason why you couldn't show off your work to an audience at a higher level within your organization. Sometimes there are no opportunities, in which case you should create opportunities for yourself. Maybe speak to your manager and have a lunchtime session or something even as short as 15-20 minutes to share your work and show the impact of the work that you've done. You can also create awareness within your organization through newsletters, maybe some digital media within the organization. I guess Yammer is one of them, or some other internal channels that you have. Try and promote your work, so to speak, or just share awareness of the work you've done, so that you can perhaps have a forum together to do that. External papers and conferences are great because you also learn from that, as well as you gain confidence from doing those presentations. So it's really nice to be able to do those types of presentations. These days, I suppose a lot of them are online, but I'm sure you will be able to find some conferences where you can submit and present papers or presentations. And sometimes you can just submit a paper without needing to do a presentation. So lots of opportunities there. I'm going to take a few examples just to show you what are the sorts of things that that you could be shouting about, so to speak. So I tuned a PID loop. This is a very common activity for a lot of people who are working on real operating plants. And this example here is a de-ethanizer where you have before and after situation of a temperature controller. And I would say these sorts of problems are very common in operating facilities. Things change and people are actively working on tuning these loops. So if you look at this very simple example, there's obviously improvements in better control. There's also potentially fewer alarms that are coming to the operator as a result of this. It could be that from a quality perspective, the temperature has an impact on ethane slippage going up through the de-ethanizer, and that's giving us some monetary benefits. So if you really think about all the potential benefits, there is actually quite a lot, and it's worth capturing all of that, thinking about it, and presenting it in a coherent way. My second example is from advanced process control. This is one of my favorite examples because this is fairly common on refineries, for example, where you have a lot of hydrogen slippage going to fuel gas, and you can see before and after there's a big reduction in hydrogen loss to the fuel gas. And this has operational benefits such as improvements in hydrogen network pressure, fewer alarms, and of course there's a monetary benefit in reducing hydrogen wastage to the fuel gas system and also the impact of the calorific value of the fuel gas, which has in all the other equipment on the plant. So again, if you really think about this, there's a multifaceted sort of benefit area here. Another example, not a very interesting one, but nevertheless quite important, is implementation of a database. I think we take these for granted now, but they are still organizations which are in the process of implementing and historizing data from their facilities. It is important that we do this because you can, after you've done the implementation, you can historize variables, you can identify process events, alarms, incidents, you can do statistics and reporting. And the question you need to ask yourself, what did you do before you had the database? How did you get access to all this information that is now available to the whole organization? And people see this as quite a mundane activity, and perhaps people don't report on the benefits of doing such a thing, but it is a big achievement in terms of the benefits it brings to the organization. And it's something that is worth mentioning so that in future, if you have projects such as this, it perhaps will become easier to gain funding for it, or actually convince management of doing projects such as this. So mundane activity, but big benefits for the organization, and it's worth shouting about. Another sort of different type of example is alarm rationalization. This one, again, you could say maybe there isn't a big monetary impact, but there's a very big kind of well-being impact of this type of activity. There's a positive impact on operations, on people who operate the facilities. You have less noise, you have time to concentrate on real issues, you have fewer incidents potentially in the long term, you have fewer nuisance alarms, and you have better sort of visibility of the critical alarms. And all in all, it's reduced operator stress. And this again is a huge benefit in terms of well-being. And again, I think people as engineers, we do this day in and day out, but we don't necessarily shout about it. We don't necessarily measure the impact on the organization as a result of this type of work. But the intangible benefits are just as important and powerful to report as the ones where we can measure the value in dollars or pounds or whatever. So think about this, and it's maybe talk to the people who are at the front end, the operations people, to really get their view on before and after scenarios. My last example is base layer improvements. This is also one of my favorites. You go to any sort of facility and you will see some PID loop configurations which you think, this doesn't look right. And you ask around, you talk to people, you look at PNIDs, and you see that it's been like that. And you talk to operations people, and the standard line is, it was always like this. And people don't challenge necessarily the way things are, because a lot of the times when a new plant has been constructed, you trust the way the engineering companies have configured the base layer, and you just sort of leave it like that until somebody comes along with a fresh pair of eyes and says, this doesn't look right. And it could be, you as a process engineer or a control engineer who's recently moved to that part of the plant, and you look at it, and if you don't think it's correct, don't be swayed by the statement, it was always like this. Challenge it and see if you can deconstruct the base layer and sort of reconstruct it in a better way, so that you can improve control, perhaps reduce alarming, and all of those sorts of benefits. So really another very simple example, but potentially having a big impact on operability and just general benefits. So in summary, I would say as engineers, we do impactful work, and we should recognize ourselves for doing that and communicate the work that we've done and our achievements. We have several tools available to us that we use every day. Use those tools to present your achievements. Get the correct forums together so you can impact the people perhaps at a decision-making level, and help your organization to learn and grow and improve. I think that should be a goal. That's all I have. Thank you very much. And we shall maybe take a couple of questions if anybody has any questions.
Mr. Sam.
Yep.
Ramaswamy here. Yep. There's one factor that it's very difficult to implement certain changes in the plant, is that the engineers have to go through the management of change management. It's when you find there is something wrong with the base layer control or the way they operate, or even changing certain things in the control loops. When as an academician, when I did some work with the Petronas operating units, I came across some resistance from the engineers that they don't want to take up the changes. How do you, in your experience, how do you manage these things?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, Ram. I think you have to be able to first show that the work that you're doing is impactful enough that the organization is willing to go through that management of change procedures. I think if the work is, if you show, for example, change in the PID loop configuration, if that is going to be impactful enough, then I think the management of change will follow through. Quite often you could do a test configuration of the new, let's take the example of changing a PID loop configuration. Quite often you could do a test configuration without going through a management of change procedure as such. Keep the old system intact, try out the new one, see if everybody's convinced, and then go through the formal process of doing the MOC.
Yeah. I had one work with one of the units where there was a nitrogen waste column, and we have identified that they are wasting a lot of nitrogen. And when we refer the original controller settings and the set point, they are not operating at that, they are operating at a different value. And I found that which is wrong, and that was the reason that they are losing nitrogen. And I did a simulation in Icon, our software, and I showed that you don't have to do big things. You don't change the set point all of a sudden. You change 1% every day, so that it doesn't move your plant so much. So in about 20 days, you can actually come back. But even then, I couldn't. I have shown everything by simulation, and I advise them just do small change, maybe 0.5% change, and then you see how it improves, and your plant has no problems, improve another 0.5%. But they were not ready to do that.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a difficult one sometimes.
Yes.
That's a people issue, right? It's just
certainly. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Ram. Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to stop the recording now, and I shall be